Hello and welcome to the top 10 technique characters for autoing on Bleach Brave Souls. Now before I begin, a quick reminder that you can pretty much auto with any character. A big part of autoing is how you build the character and what accessories you have, and just because you don't see them on this list doesn't mean they're not good for autoing. But the following characters do have the upper edge when it comes to it. Also, and I have to point this out now, this list is specifically in order for autoing. Some people got upset that certain characters didn't make it in previous lists, even though those characters really aren't good for autoing. They just really like the character, I guess, I don't know. Anyway, that said, let's begin. Now we're starting things off with Sosuke Aizen at number 10. As I've mentioned in previous lists, characters with really high SPs typically aren't the best for autoing, because their focus is mostly on strong attacks, and the AI doesn't know the best time to use them. While this does technically apply for Aizen as well, he's actually got an advantage that most other characters don't, and that's in his attack. He doesn't have the highest attack, but he does have a boost move that increases it by 33% for 20 seconds anytime he uses it. Sure, the AI is going to use it whenever the AI is going to use it, but because Aizen has a strong attack recharge link, there's a good chance you're going to be boosted for a big chunk of the run. Not to mention that while his attack may be low, he does have a plus 40 bruiser, which is way better than the 20% that high SP characters are getting now. Not to mention that the boost move also boosts his defense, so he's not a bad option for autoing co-op either. So yeah, in the end, the only reason I ended up actually putting him at 10 is because the AI doesn't know when the best time to use his strong attacks is, and it's likely going to waste him more than anything else, by either using the boost move on the final enemy of the area, or prematurely using the strong attacks, which happens a lot for characters who have full screen strong attacks. Still, he's not a bad option to take if you're looking for a decent green auto character.
Senkei Senbon Zakura Kageyoshi Oni Ikka Senjinka.
Next on the list is Manga Byakuya, a character that, while K-Lab didn't do him justice, is actually still a pretty good character, with both his SP and attack being close to 700. Not to mention that he has a plus 40 Berserker and a plus 40 Bruiser. In addition to that, he also has a full stamina damage link, and while that's not the best link to have, he does a good job at maintaining it, since he's ranged, which is good for an auto character, and his strong attack too is a shield move. Both of these things are really good for preserving this full stamina, and will let you build this character in a way that he's not only good for autoing single player but also co-op, since he'll be providing shield for the rest of his team with his 160 max strong attack too. Now, unfortunately, this character's normal attack isn't exactly piercing. I'm not sure that if it was, it would switch its position on this list, since it picks up pretty heavily from here, but it would still be a lot nicer if he had it. Even so, this character's still really good at autoing, and because of his stats, is still one of the best hybrid characters in the game, so you can be dealing damage from your normal attack and your strong attack. Now, if only there was a way to auto special. Next up is actually the first character ever in my top 10s to be resurrected. I'm talking about the Green Kenny, whose normal attack I just couldn't ignore when it comes to this list. Despite this character being very old, he has a crazy 749 attack, and yes, 40 points of that does come from his link, but he also has a 16% normal attack damage link, and he has Bruiser at 10. And while ordinarily Bruiser at 10 is awful, like seriously horrendous, this guy also happens to have Flurry, meaning he not only has Flurry but essentially 26% up on his normal attack. Plus he has poise so he won't stagger, meaning he's gonna complete a raid a lot faster, and he's gonna be able to attack enemies as they're attacking him. Now while this character did become usable with the Resurrection, he still has some major drawbacks that Resurrection just couldn't get rid of. For one, he has a horrible killer. And while yes, it is becoming relevant again with the Espadas coming back in PvP, this isn't PvP, and an Espada killer in PvE is just as useless to you as a captain one. Now ordinarily I can get past this and put him a little bit higher on the list. However, the worst part about this character is by far his strong attacks. They not only take long to activate, giving enemies the opportunity to hit him, but they also have terrible range. So it's gonna be a little bit harder to break guards. Plus they don't hit that many times, making it even tougher. This Kenny may have Flurry, but this just goes to show that even a Flurry character needs good strong attacks, at least some with some range.
私が吹き飛ばしてあげる。あなたの心も晴れたかしら。ここまでか。
Now next on the list we have Neliel, the Parasol version, who not only has a really high attack of 754, but also has a boosted normal attack damage link of 25%, as well as Bruiser at 50, making the magnification on her own normal attack 75%, just by herself. And while having Flurry is technically better, she more than makes up for this with her Hollow Killer, that could potentially give her more of a damage output in Senkaimon Inheritance Zones and Droplet Zones. Not to mention, she's got really useful strong attacks, with her strong attack 3 being full screen and her strong attack 2 being a vortex move, though unfortunately it's not a long duration one. Still, these strong attacks and her strong attack 1 as well as her normal attack all have a chance to inflict debilitating paralysis, something that's really useful for autoing. With all that said, her normal attack speed is not the best. I'd put it at around Ishin's speed. It's not a bad speed, but it could be a little bit faster. Then there's also her normal attack's range, that you would think would be a little bit better, what with the plus 20 long reach, but again it's also pretty average. Still, this character is great for autoing, and I find myself using her on a regular basis.
冷圧をぶち込んで叩き起こしたいやつがいるんだ。まだ全然使いこなせちゃいねえけどな。
Next on the list, we have the manga version of Ichigo, the tech one of course, not the other one. Not only does he have a crazy high attack of 771, but he also has Flurry, and it's the first and only character in the game so far to be ranged and have Flurry. Not to mention that, unlike Kenny, he's also got really useful strong attacks. Strong attack 3 is full screen, and his strong attack 2 is a crawling vortex move that helps keep enemies away. Plus his strong attack 1 is a really good pushback move from when enemies get too close. This makes him one of the better ranged characters, since he can deal all that damage from a distance. Now unfortunately, unlike most Flurry characters, he doesn't have poise, but again, because he's ranged, he doesn't exactly need it. Sadly though, he does have one major drawback, and that's in his Espada killer. Once again, now useful in PvP, but not so useful in PvE. And while you wouldn't see the impact of it much in regular raids, such as the Fusion Trials or a regular 5-star raid, it does start to show up in Inheritance Zones and Droplet Zones. Still, this character is really good for autoing, and even in those can deal a massive amount of damage even if his killer isn't multiplied. Next on the list is Halloween Yachiru, a character that's better than most people give her credit for. She has a 754 attack, as well as a plus 40 bruiser and a plus 20 nad link. Now yes, Nell's link and her bruiser are better, but it's safe to say that Yachiru's normal attack is easily better than Nell's. It's actually better than anyone else I've put on this list so far. It's not only ranged, but it's also piercing, allowing you to hit a lot more enemies in shorter time, and doing it all from a distance. Plus, since each of the attacks hit twice, it increases the likelihood of inflicting confusion. Not the best status ailment, but it can be quite useful when autoing, since the enemies will hurt themselves, and they'll attack in the wrong direction. She's also got very useful strong attacks, with her strong attack 3 being a full screen and her strong attack 2 being a crawling vortex move, that greatly increases the chance of inflicting the confusion, but more importantly pushes the enemies back, keeping Yachiru safe and allowing her to attack from a distance once again. Finally, Yachiru is also one of the first characters to have 2 immunities, and hers are very useful. You can either freeze or burn her, so you don't have to worry about her stepping on fire or being hit by those really annoying hollows, and it's all of this that puts Yachiru this high up on the list. Next on the list is Christmas Ururu, who, to be honest, is one of the slower characters on this list. This is because she's not only ranged, and ranged characters are a bit slower, but her normal attack isn't piercing, which slows her down even more. That said, while she is slow, she is also one of the more reliable characters on this list. As I mentioned, she's ranged, and ranged characters, while slower, are a bit more reliable, and she's also a healer, meaning that under a DR build, she won't take that much damage, and when she does, she'll just heal it. And thanks to her strong attack recharge link, she can actually use this heal move a bit faster than any other healer, and that'll affect not just her but the entire team thanks to her medic ability. Ururu's other strong attacks are also really good. Her strong attack 1 is really good for pushing enemies back when they get too close, and her strong attack 3 is not only full screen but also has a chance to inflict debilitating freezing. On top of all this, she's also got no affiliation, and as I've mentioned in other videos, there's currently no inheritance zones or droplet zones that have enemies with no affiliation killers, putting her at an advantage there, and making her a great option for any raid with a hollow in it since she has a hollow killer. Now the downside to this character does come with her normal attack. Something you wouldn't think about since her attack is really high and she's got a plus 40 bruiser. But as I mentioned earlier, her normal attack isn't piercing, and the last attack only has a 40% magnification. So even though it has the best range, it doesn't deal that much damage, making her extremely slow to take out the enemies and allowing them to get some good hits in. Still, she's one of the best characters to use, and as a bonus, this is technically Tag Team Kon. That's not true.
仕方ねえ。よく見とけよ。俺の戦い方を。
At number 3 on the list, we have the captain version of Kenzi, who has a really high attack of 767, as well as a plus 50 bruiser and a boosted 20% damage reduction soul trait. Build this character correctly and you can be dealing a ton of damage, while also receiving far less of it. Now Kenzi has a really good normal attack, it's pretty fast and has some pretty good range. That said, he's also got some really useful strong attacks. While they don't deal that much damage due to his low SP, they all have some pretty good range and are really good for knocking enemies down, something that's very life-saving when it comes to autoing. Kenzi is also completely immune to being paralyzed, which is one of the best immunities you can get for autoing, since it's one of the deadliest things that can happen to your character and is responsible for so many deaths in inheritance zones and droplet zones. There's also the fact that while he does have a Soul Reaper killer, which is the best killer to have, he doesn't have a Soul Reaper affiliation, so you can pretty much take him since they gave him a Captain and a Hollow affiliation. It's one of those things that's kind of a bonus that you don't really think about, and honestly that's pretty much it. There's nothing really flashy about him, he's just really good at what he does, and he's one of the faster characters on this list. At number 2 on the list, we have the one-armed version of Yama, an extremely powerful character with a really high attack as well as flurry and poise. In addition to this, he's also got a damage reduction soul trait that can be stacked up to 76%, allowing you to take very little damage while being able to dish out a whole lot of it. Not only this, but his normal attack as well as all of his strong attacks have a chance to inflict debilitating burn, letting you deal even more damage that way. Plus his strong attacks all have really good range despite him not being a ranged character, and they hit multiple times so the likelihood of inflicting burn increases. So yeah, he's just a heavy tank with the ability to inflict burn. That said, he does have a major weakness, and that's in his captain killer. And it's because of this killer that he's actually not number 1. I honestly wish I could count killers for less so that I can put him at number 1, but killers have become so important, especially with the multipliers, that it's impossible to ignore a bad one. And at this point, most of us are looking for good auto characters, not for the regular events, but for things like inheritance zones and droplet zones. Still, even without a good killer, he can take on some of those as well, and it's because he can do it all that he's at number 2. Now at number 1 is Shinji Hirako, a character I might get a bit of heat on because people don't really like his link, and I don't blame you, that's not a great link. Still, even without it, he has a ridiculous plus 80 bruiser, another 20 and it's basically flurry, and he has a good killer. So against them, it's pretty much flurry, and when it's multiplied, it goes beyond that. Shinji's also got really good range on his normal attack, and he's got some really useful strong attacks, with his strong attack 3 being a hybrid vortex move with really good range that puts enemies in one spot, prepping them for Shinji to strike, and his strong attack 2 being a long-lasting stationary vortex move, which is one of the best things for an auto character to have. Then we have his link. As I mentioned, people don't really like it, but under the right build, it can actually be quite useful, since equipping a last ditch survival link, one of the best links for autoing, would bring him back with the ability to deal 30% more damage on all of his attacks. I would still prefer another link, but this link is not useless. Finally, we have one of the best things about this character, and that's his complete immunity to freeze and paralysis, the two biggest killers when it comes to autoing. He can still be hit with these attacks, but Shinji will never stop attacking, and this is unbelievably valuable, and it's one of the main reasons I ended up putting him at number 1.
挽回観音開き紅姫改め仕方ないっすね
And you thought this list was over. I'm actually putting a number 0 on this list. This isn't to say that Quisqueya is better than any character on this list, because honestly, everyone that came before him is better than him for autoing. However, he does have something very useful when it comes to autoing, so I figured I actually have to put him on this list somewhere. Quisqueya special pretty much gives everyone a 1-up, whether it's single player or co-op. As soon as he uses it, anyone who's alive to witness it gets to come back if they so happen to die after he uses the special. This is more useful than anything else I've covered on this list so far. It doesn't matter if it's flurry, poise, or healing. And it brings you back with 50% of your health too. So your single player team of 3 becomes the equivalent of a single player team of 6. Plus, he's immune to poison, but this is just a bonus. The reason I actually didn't include him in the top 10 was because you technically do have to do something to activate the special, so you technically only be autoing 99% of the raid. I didn't really want to disqualify him for this, but it also felt weird putting him in the top 10, which is why I put him here instead, since it's such a useful thing for autoing. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit like and subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for some more top 10 lists.